Chair recognizes the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Mast.
Thank you, Chairman. So I want to start with some of the broader implications that were mentioned here. I think that was a great word to use, and so I just start with maybe not yes or no, but a quick short opinion from each one of you. Do you think that Iran sees these as colonies, sees their proxies as colonies? Do you think maybe we're using the wrong word?
Speaking for Iraq, yes, I mean, they've economically colonized parts of the Iraqi economy. They're a bit like the East India Company once upon a time. They're actually a money-making venture as well as a military intelligence venture.
In the case of Lebanon, they're going to run up against a wall that no single faction and no single community, as in the case of Lebanon's divided political landscape, has ever been able to take preeminence. As powerful as Hezbollah is, it can't take over Lebanon, and Lebanon can't become a colony state of Iran. What you have is a country where they're just going to try to maintain a strategic posture tied to deterrence.
What about any other place they have proxies for you?
In the case of Yemen, there comes a point where you have buyer's remorse. There's no reason why a country like Iran is going to sustain a level of engagement with countries like Yemen, where you have a far more expeditionary footprint, where they own the problems of the region. And in a place like Iraq, it's far more complex than I think a lot of the Iranian leadership expected, given their own challenges of managing Sunni Shiite tensions in a place like Iraq.
But you did just point out as well that they have a very long-term view. Hezbollah, you pointed out, 30 years in the making. I mean, they very clearly have an ability to look down the road quite a long ways. Dr. Pollack, Ms. Dalton.
I'll just say, I think it runs the gamut, Congressman. There are groups like Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which are clear proxies of Iran. Then the Houthis, who I'd describe as allies. And even within a place like Iraq, you have a range from the Badr Corps to Saif al-Haq to Kataib Hezbollah, running a range of how tied in they are to Iran, how much Iran can control them, how much they have their own interests.
I think the Houthis are a really good example of a group that is on perhaps the other end of the spectrum in terms of a way for Iran to, in a low-cost fashion, disrupt one of their key adversaries in the region, which is Saudi Arabia. But the Houthis are not a true proxy in the sense, or colony in the sense that perhaps Lebanese Hezbollah, some of the groups in Iraq are. So again, to the point, not all proxies are created equal.
Certainly not. Switching gears, but sticking with the theme of broader implications. General question, love to again have the opinion from all four of you. It certainly hasn't been lack of desire to develop nuclear weapons. What has prevented Iran from developing nuclear systems, something that we developed in the 1940s? We mastered it by the 1950s and 60s. The delivery systems for them, whether it be via submarine, dropping it out of an airplane, or firing it out of a silo, we developed that, mastered it by, 60s and 70s for sure. What has prevented them from developing that? We did it in the 40s. How come they haven't been able to?
Congressman, there's a big question. It deserves a better answer than I can give you, but I will say that it is a combination of different factors, starting with the fact that their scientific establishment isn't as good as ours, but adding to that the fact that we didn't have a much bigger, more powerful country like the United States and allies like Israel, the Europeans, Saudi Arabia, et cetera, all working as hard as they could to prevent Iran from acquiring the scientific know-how, the technology, and the resources to do so.
What do you think is most important to get scientific know-how and technology? I would say resources.
That would be a very good start. I mean, as we've seen with other countries, if the resources are there, the scientific know-how may follow.
So if we have potential colonization of the Middle East and an Iranian empire that has much greater access to the world economy, do we have access to much more resources in Iran?
At the end of the day, Mr. Mast, we're still living in a dollarized economy. And one of the problems that Iran is continuing to struggle with is its ambitions are constantly curtailed by the fact that it has to work in a dollar economy. That's why the mix of sanctions, not only on Iran, but its proxies in the region, if not carefully calibrated, and they are in many ways, they can have the detrimental effect of moving Iran outside the dollar economy. In many ways, that is one of the most powerful weapons that a country like the United States can deploy to limit the ambitions and the ability to amass the resources you described.
We had Dr. Knight mention that he thought there was resources coming in as a result of what I would point towards as colonization. In your opinion, do you think that there are more resources now post-JCPOA or less post-JCPOA?
I frankly could not make an informed statement to that effect without having the adequate knowledge on that.
Some of the actions that they undertake out in the environments where the Iranian-backed militias are active are just to self-finance those projects so that they're less of a drain on the Iranian military and economy. But yeah, the opening of Iran to international investment is going to put a massive shot in the arm of the entire system.
My time has expired. I thank you for your answers.